The night air in the city was thick with dust and distant music as Amina drove through the dimly lit streets, finishing her last ride. The man in the back seat had been quiet the entire journey, his face hidden in shadows, his voice low when he gave directions. Something about him felt familiar, but Amina couldn't explain why. When the taxi finally stopped, he rushed out quickly, barely saying thank you. "Wait, your change." Amina called, but he had already disappeared into the darkness. She sighed, tired, and reached back to clean the seat, then froze. A phone. Still warm. Her heart skipped as she picked it up. "He forgot his phone," she whispered. The screen suddenly lit up with a message notification. "I miss you tonight." I wish she knew the truth. Amina frowned, confusion creeping in. She murmured. Then her breath caught. The lock screen photo slowly appeared, and her hands began to shake. It was her own smiling face. This is Daniel's phone," she whispered, her voice breaking. A cold wave rushed through her chest as the quiet night suddenly felt heavy and dangerous. Something was terribly wrong. Every morning before the sun fully rose over the crowded rooftops of the city, Amina was already awake. The streets of her neighborhood slowly came to life. Children running with school bags, women setting up small stalls, and the distant sound of buses echoing through the dusty roads. Amina tied her scarf neatly, took a deep breath, and looked at herself in the small mirror. "You have to keep going," she whispered softly. Life had never been easy, but she had learned how to carry her struggles with quiet strength. Driving a taxi was not what she had dreamed of as a young girl, but it had become her survival, her independence, and her pride. People in the neighborhood respected her. Some even admired her courage. "Amina, you are stronger than many men," one neighbor often said with a smile. She would laugh lightly, but deep inside, she knew strength was not a choice. It was something life had forced upon her. Her husband, Daniel, used to be her biggest support. In the early days of their marriage, he was kind, gentle, and full of dreams. He would hold her hand and say, "One day, we will leave this struggle behind. I promise." And Amina believed him. She believed in their love, in their future, in every word he spoke. But lately, something had changed. Daniel came home late, often tired and distant. Sometimes he would sit in silence, staring at nothing, as if his mind was somewhere far away. "Are you okay?" Amina asked one evening, placing food in front of him. He forced a small smile. "Just work stress," he replied quickly. "Don't worry." Amina nodded, choosing to trust him, even though a quiet voice inside her heart felt uneasy. Marriage needs patience, she told herself. Love is not always easy. She pushed away her doubts, believing that hard times would pass. At night, while the city slowly fell asleep, Amina often lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She remembered the man Daniel used to be, the one who laughed freely, who shared his thoughts, who looked at her like she was his whole world. "Maybe I'm just overthinking," she whispered to herself, turning to face him as he slept beside her. But even in his sleep, Daniel felt distant. Still, Amina held on. She held on to love, to hope, to the belief that everything would be okay again. Because for her, giving up was never an option. She had fought too hard, sacrificed too much, and loved too deeply to let doubt break her. Little did she know, the truth she was trying to ignore was already growing quietly in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to destroy everything she believed in. That night, the forgotten phone lay on Amina's table like a silent storm waiting to explode. The room was dim, only a small bulb flickering above her as she sat in silence, staring at it. Her heart was still unsettled from what she had seen earlier. The message, the photo, the strange feeling that something didn't belong. "It's not right to look," she whispered to herself. "It's not my phone." But her fingers kept moving closer anyway, as if something inside her was pulling her forward. The phone suddenly lit up again. A new message appeared on the screen. "Did you reach home safely? I miss you already." Amina froze. Her breath caught in her throat. "Miss you," she repeated slowly, her voice barely a whisper. Her hands began to shake. A strange cold feeling spread through her chest, something she had never felt before, not even in her hardest days. No, this must be a mistake," she said quickly, trying to calm herself. But deep inside, her instincts were screaming at her to look further. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Her mind told her to stop. Her heart refused. Finally, she unlocked it. What she saw next made the world around her feel distant, like she was falling into a deep, silent void. Messages, endless messages. Late-night conversations. Heart emojis. Plans. Promises. And one name kept appearing again and again. Zara Redheart. Amina frowned. "Who is Zara?" she whispered. Her hands trembled harder as she scrolled down. The words were soft, loving, intimate. Words no stranger should send. Words meant for someone deeply loved. "I can't be seeing this," Amina said, stepping back from the table. But her body refused to move away completely. Then another message appeared at the top. "Zara, when will you finally leave her?" Amina's heart stopped for a second. Her. Amina repeated slowly, confusion turning into fear. A heavy silence filled the room. The ticking clock suddenly felt louder, each second cutting deeper into her chest. "No," she whispered again, but this time her voice cracked. Something was terribly wrong. And deep inside, Amina already knew. Her life was about to change forever. Amina sat frozen on the edge of her bed, the glowing phone trembling in her hands like it was alive. The room felt colder now, even though the night outside was still warm. Her eyes kept going back to the name on the screen, Zara Redheart, as if reading it again might change its meaning. But it didn't. It stayed the same. Real. Sharp. Unforgiving. "No, this is not possible," Amina whispered, shaking her head slowly. "Daniel would never." But even as she said it, her voice sounded weak, uncertain, like she no longer believed her own words. Her thumb moved again before she could stop herself. She opened the conversation fully. What she saw next felt like a punch to her chest. Messages filled the screen, too many to ignore. Long conversations, late-night voice notes, and promises that sounded like love, real love. But not for her. "Zara, I waited for you again tonight. Daniel, I'm tired of pretending. Just give me time." "Zara, she still doesn't know, does she?" Amina's breath stopped completely. She repeated slowly, her voice shaking. "She doesn't know?" Her hand slipped slightly, almost dropping the phone. Her heart began to pound so loudly she could hear it in her ears. The world around her blurred. The walls, the bed, the night outside. It all started to feel unreal. No, no, she said quickly, standing up. "This must be some mistake. Someone is using his phone." But deep inside, she knew that was a lie she was telling herself to survive the pain. She scrolled further, and then she saw it. A voice note. Her finger hovered for a second before pressing play. Daniel's voice filled the room. Low, tired, but painfully clear. "Just a little more time, Zara. Once I fix everything, I'll leave. She will understand, or she won't. But I can't keep living this double life." Amina's knees weakened. She dropped onto the bed, her hand covering her mouth as tears finally welled up in her eyes. "So, it's true," she whispered. The man she trusted. The man she built her life with. The man she called her home. He was living a lie. And somewhere in that same city, another woman was waiting for him to choose between truth and betrayal. The room felt different now. It was no longer just a place Amina lived in. It felt like a prison of thoughts she could not escape. The phone lay on her lap, still glowing, still dangerous, as if it was waiting to reveal more pain. Her breathing was uneven, shallow. Every message she had read kept repeating in her mind like a broken record she could not stop. But something inside her refused to believe everything at once. "No, Daniel is not like this," she whispered, gripping the phone tightly. "There must be something I am missing." Her fingers moved again, slower this time, almost afraid of what she might uncover next. She opened another folder, voice notes. The first one played. Daniel's voice filled the silence. "Zara, I can't keep doing this. Amina is starting to suspect something." Amina closed her eyes immediately. Her chest tightened. "Suspect?" she repeated softly. "So I am not imagining it." She played the next one. "Once I get access to the savings account, everything will be easier. Then we leave this place." Amina's eyes snapped open. "Savings account?" she whispered. Her mind froze for a second. That was not just emotional betrayal. That was something deeper. Something planned. Her hands started shaking harder now. She sat upright, trying to understand what she was hearing. But the truth was becoming heavier with every second. Then came another message, this one from Zara. "Don't forget, she trusts you completely. That's why it will work." Amina felt a sharp pain in her stomach. She trusts you completely, she repeated slowly. A cold realization spread through her body. This was not just betrayal. This was preparation. A plan. Amina stood up suddenly, pacing the room. No, no. This is not love. This is something else, she said out loud, as if saying it would make it less real. But the silence around her did not disagree. She opened one final voice note. Daniel's voice was lower this time, almost emotionless. After tonight, there is no going back. Everything changes. Amina dropped the phone onto the bed. It bounced slightly, still glowing in the dark like a warning she could not ignore. No going back, she whispered. Her heart pounded violently now. Her marriage, her trust, her life. All of it suddenly felt like it had been built on something fragile, something already breaking. And in that moment, Amina understood something terrifying. She was not just betrayed. She was part of a plan she never agreed to. Amina stood still in the middle of the room, her mind racing, her heart refusing to accept what it already knew. The phone was still in her hand, but now it felt heavier, like it carried the weight of her entire life. No, this cannot be everything, she whispered, her voice weak but desperate. There has to be more. Her eyes fell back on the screen. One message caught her attention, an older one. The name Zara appeared again, but this time, something felt different. Amina frowned slightly and opened it. And then everything inside her broke. A photo loaded slowly. Amina's breath stopped. Her fingers tightened around the phone as her eyes widened in shock. No, no. This is not possible, she whispered, stepping back. It was a picture of Zara. But Amina knew her. Not as a stranger. Not as some unknown woman. But as someone from her own life. That's Zara, Amina said, her voice trembling. The same girl. Memories rushed into her mind like a flood she could not control. Zara. The young woman Amina had helped months ago. The one who had no place to stay. The one Amina had once allowed into her home, fed, supported, and treated like family. You can stay here until you find your feet, Amina had told her back then with a kind smile. And now, that same woman was the one planning to destroy her life. Amina's legs weakened as she slowly sat down. Her eyes filled with tears, but this time, they were not just tears of heartbreak. They were tears of deep betrayal. This is not just love, she said softly. This is betrayal from both sides. Her hands shook as she opened another message. Zara. She still believes I am grateful to her. Daniel. That's why she will never see it coming. Amina covered her mouth, a soft cry escaping her lips. I helped you, she whispered painfully. I trusted you. Her chest tightened as the truth finally settled in. This was not just a husband cheating. This was a husband and a woman she once saved, working together, planning, using her trust as a weapon against her. Amina looked around her small home, the same place where she had once offered kindness, love, and safety. Now it felt empty, broken. Two people I trusted, she said slowly, tears falling down her face. And both chose to destroy me. The silence that followed was heavy. But inside that silence, something began to change. The pain was still there. But now, something stronger was rising with it. Awareness. And the beginning of a decision that would change everything. The door creaked open slowly as Daniel stepped into the house, unaware that everything had already changed. The room was quiet, but not peaceful, the kind of silence that feels heavy, like a storm waiting to break. Amina stood near the table, the phone in her hand, her eyes fixed on him. She didn't move. She didn't speak at first. Daniel paused. Amina? You're still awake? He asked, forcing a casual tone, but there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. Amina took a slow step forward. Where were you? Her voice was calm, too calm. At work, he replied quickly. I told you, long day. Amina nodded slightly, her grip tightening on the phone. Work, she repeated. Is that what you call it now? Daniel frowned. What do you mean? Without saying another word, Amina lifted the phone and placed it on the table between them. I think you forgot something, she said. Daniel's face changed instantly. The color drained. His eyes locked onto the phone like it was something dangerous. I was looking for it, he said, trying to stay composed. Where did you find it? In my taxi. Amina replied, her voice sharper now. After you rushed out, like you had something to hide. Daniel swallowed. Amina, it's not what you think. Then tell me what it is, she snapped suddenly, her voice rising for the first time. The calm was gone. The pain had broken through. Daniel stepped back slightly, surprised. Why were you checking my phone? Amina laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. Don't turn this on me, she said, shaking her head. Not tonight. Not after everything I saw. She picked up the phone, unlocked it, and pressed play on a voice note. Daniel's own voice filled the room. Once I get access to the savings, everything will be easier. Then we leave. Silence. Heavy, crushing silence. Daniel closed his eyes for a brief second. Amina stared at him, tears falling freely now. Look at me, Daniel, she said, her voice breaking. Look at me and tell me it. S.A. lie. He didn't. That silence said everything. You were going to take everything I worked for, she continued, her voice trembling with pain. And leave with her. Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. Amina, it's complicated. No, she cut him off firmly. It's not complicated. It's betrayal. Her voice softened, but it hurt even more. I trusted you. I believed in you. I built my life around you. Daniel looked away, unable to face her. And Zara, Amina continued, her voice now filled with disbelief. The same woman I helped, you both planned this together? Daniel stayed silent. That was the answer. Amina took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling as she fought to stay strong. The pain was still there, but now, it was mixed with clarity. You didn't just break my heart, she said quietly. You tried to break my life. The room felt colder than ever. And in that moment, Amina knew nothing would ever be the same again. The silence in the room stretched like a wound that refused to heal. Amina stood still, her hands trembling, her eyes locked on Daniel as if searching for the man she once loved somewhere inside him. But all she saw now was distance and truth. The truth she never wanted to believe. Daniel stood near the wall, avoiding her gaze, his shoulders heavy like he was carrying the weight of his own guilt, but not enough to undo what he had done. Amina let out a shaky breath. Say something, she whispered. Her voice was softer now, broken in places. Tell me I misunderstood everything. Daniel looked at her for a moment, then looked away again. Amina, he started slowly, but stopped. That pause hurt more than words. Amina shook her head. No, don't do that. Don't say my name like you still care, she said, her voice rising again. Just tell me the truth. All of it. Daniel finally sighed, tired and defeated. It's true, he said quietly. Those two words hit Amina like a physical blow. For a moment, she didn't move. She didn't blink. She just stood there, absorbing the confirmation she had already feared. It's true, she repeated slowly, as if trying to understand a foreign language. Daniel nodded slightly. I didn't plan for things to go this far. Stop, Amina interrupted sharply. Her voice cracked in the middle, but she forced herself to continue. Don't soften it. Don't try to make it smaller than it is. Her eyes filled with tears, but she refused to let them control her. You betrayed me, she said. You and Zara, you both planned to use me. Daniel stayed silent again, and that silence confirmed everything. Amina took a step back, her hand pressing against her chest. Her breathing became uneven. Do you know what hurts the most? She asked softly. It's not even the lies, it's that I loved you through them. Daniel's face tightened slightly, but he still didn't move closer. I worked every day, she continued, her voice shaking but growing stronger. I drove through this city. I came home tired. I believed in us. I believed in you. A tear finally slipped down her cheek, but she didn't wipe it away. And all this time, I was just a plan to you. Daniel looked down. Amina, I didn't want to hurt you. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. But you did anyway, she said. And you did it while looking me in the eyes. The room felt smaller now, like it was closing in on her. Amina walked slowly to the table, placing the phone down gently. Her voice lowered, almost calm now, but in a dangerous way. You know, the morning sun rose slowly over the city, painting the streets in soft golden light. The same roads that once felt heavy to Amina now felt different, not because the world had changed, but because she had changed. She stood outside her small home, holding her taxi keys in her hand, staring at them for a long moment. For a second, she hesitated. Memories of that night still lingered in her mind like shadows that refused to fully disappear. But then she took a deep breath. I cannot stop my life because someone betrayed me, she whispered to herself. And with that, she stepped forward. The engine of her taxi started with a familiar sound, but this time, it felt different. stronger, like it belonged to her again. As she drove into the busy streets, the city welcomed her with its usual chaos. Honking cars, shouting vendors, rushing people. But Amina no longer felt lost in it. She felt awake. Her first passenger of the day was an elderly woman carrying vegetables. She looked at Amina kindly. "You look peaceful today, my daughter," the woman said with a warm smile. Amina smiled softly. "I am learning to be," she replied. And for the first time in a long time, it was true. But healing was not instant. Sometimes, during quiet moments, memories still returned. Daniel's face, his silence, Zara's betrayal, the voice notes, the broken trust. But instead of breaking her again, the memories now reminded her of something else, her survival. "I was not weak," Amina thought one afternoon while waiting at a traffic light. "I was just trusting the wrong people." Days turned into weeks. And slowly, Amina rebuilt herself. She began to laugh again, not loudly, not carelessly, but gently, like someone rediscovering light after a long darkness. The community noticed the change. Her neighbors who once saw her as just a hardworking taxi driver now saw something else in her eyes, strength born from pain. One evening, a young woman entered her taxi, crying silently. Amina noticed but didn't ask immediately. She simply drove in silence for a while, giving space. After a few minutes, she said softly, "It feels like the world is ending, doesn't it?" The woman nodded, wiping her tears. Amina looked at her through the mirror and said, "I once felt the same." That simple sentence changed the atmosphere inside the car. The woman looked up. Amina continued gently, "But I learned something. When people break your heart, they are not taking your future. They are just showing you who doesn't belong in it." The woman stayed silent, listening. Amina smiled slightly. "You will survive this. And one day, you will smile without remembering the pain first." By the time they reached the destination, the woman was no longer crying. She stepped out and whispered, "Thank you." Amina nodded. "Stay strong." As the taxi moved forward again, Amina felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, purpose. Not because her past was gone, but because it no longer controlled her. That night, as she parked her taxi under the city lights, Amina looked up at the sky. The same sky she once cried under. Now felt like it was listening differently. "I lost a husband," she whispered to herself. "But I found myself." And in that moment, she finally understood the deepest truth of her journey. Sometimes life does not break you to destroy you. It breaks you to rebuild you stronger than before. The city had grown quiet again, the kind of quiet that comes after a long emotional storm. Amina's taxi stood still under a dim streetlight, its engine off, its windows reflecting the soft glow of the night. Inside, Amina sat in silence, her hands resting gently on the steering wheel. For a long time, she didn't move. She didn't speak. She simply breathed. And then, in that silence, her voice began, not in conversation, but in reflection. Her voice was calm now, steady, but deeply emotional. "I once believed love was enough to hold a life together," she said softly. "I thought if I gave my trust completely, nothing could break me." A pause. But I was wrong. Her eyes slowly lifted toward the window, where the city lights flickered like distant memories. "I learned that trust is beautiful, but blind trust can be dangerous." As she spoke, images from her past seemed to echo in her mind. The forgotten phone, the messages, the betrayal, the voice notes, Zara's face, Daniel's silence. But instead of pain, there was now understanding. "I lost people I never thought I would lose," she continued. "And I learned that sometimes, the people closest to you are the ones who teach you the hardest lessons." Her voice softened even more. "I used to think losing someone meant losing everything." A faint, emotional smile touched her lips. "But I discovered something stronger. I did not lose everything. I found myself." The camera of life, as if moving through her memory, showed flashes of her journey. Amina driving through early mornings, struggling through nights, crying alone, and slowly rebuilding herself piece by piece. "I was broken," she admitted quietly, "but not destroyed." A long silence followed. Then she spoke again, her tone now more inspiring, almost like she was speaking not just to herself, but to anyone listening. "If you are watching this, if you are hurting, if someone has betrayed your trust, listen carefully." Her eyes became firm. "Pain is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of your strength." A soft breath escaped her lips. I learned that love without respect is not love. Trust without honesty is not safe. And staying where you are broken does not heal you. She looked down at her hands for a moment. I forgive my past, she said gently. Not because it was fair, but because I deserve peace. A soft wind moved through the street outside, carrying the feeling of closure. Amina continued, her voice now almost like a whisper. One day, I will love again, but this time, I will not lose myself in it. A pause. I will choose peace over pain, truth over illusion, and myself over everything that tries to break me. She leaned back slightly, closing her eyes for a moment as if releasing the last weight from her heart. Then she spoke her final words, the message that carried the entire meaning of her journey. Sometimes, life does not take people away from you to punish you. It takes them away to protect you from a future you cannot see yet. A deep silence followed. The city remained the same outside, but Amina was not the same anymore. She opened her eyes, started the taxi engine gently, and smiled for the first time without pain behind it. And as she drove forward into the night, her voice echoed one last time, calm, powerful, and free. Never beg someone to stay in your life. If they were meant for you, they would never leave you broken. The taxi moved forward, disappearing into the glowing African city night. But Amina's story stayed behind, not as a story of betrayal, but as a story of strength, healing, and rebirth. Sometimes the truth breaks your heart, but it also saves your life.